Ornamental fish farming. Farming of ornamental fish has become a very large international business, with Bartley believing that it was worth about 15 billion US dollars by the year 2000. The global picture is fairly easy to summarize. In terms of suppliers or exporters, Singapore alone holds about a quarter of the world market. China another 10%, and so forth. And if you look at these countries, you'll see the domination once again by Southeast Asian countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan, Sri Lanka, and the Philippines. In terms of imports, the picture is very much simpler to follow. A quarter of the world market is the United States. A further quarter are France, the United Kingdom, and Germany. Japan, 18%, and the rest of the world is the remaining third. There are a large number of species that are traded globally. I want to divide these into cold water freshwater species, tropical or warm water freshwater species, and marine ornamental fish. Looking first at the cold water species, within southern Africa there are two species that are traded frequently, these being the koi and goldfish. Koi are carp, Cyprinus carpio. They are identical to wild carp except for their coloration, which over many generations has been selected to enhance certain color patterns and certain colors. This is a large industry sector worth in the region of about 50 million rand in South Africa. High quality koi are mostly imported, but the cheaper grades are largely farmed locally. There remains good demand for exporting high-quality fish to Europe and the United States. There are about 70 or so recognized varieties of koi. Of these, about 20 are frequently traded and well known. Seasonal production is used. Mostly the fish are reared in earth ponds to market size, but they can be reared in recirculating systems as well. Goldfish are mostly imported. There are many producers in South Africa. The largest of these was at one stage producing more than 1 million fish per annum. But unfortunately, cheap imports, especially from the Far East and Israel, have completely dominated this industry to the point that the local producers have mostly shut down. Demand still far exceeds supply, and imports supply the vast majority of goldfish sold in South Africa. Production in South Africa is seasonal, and once again the fish are usually farmed in earth ponds. Within the tropical freshwater sector, there is a large number of species that is traded. The livebearers are the first grouping, which is very highly traded, and there are a large number of local producers. Guppies, platies, mollies, and swordtails are all traded. With egg layers, there are tetras, barbs, loaches, rasboras, catfish, cichlids, pencilfish, you name it, all sorts of different species, representing a huge variety of shapes, sizes, spawning types, water quality requirements, dietary requirements, and so forth. This beautiful specimen is a black-laced angelfish. This is a tiger barb, a red-tailed shark, and clown loaches. A number of species represent what are known as garders. In this case, we can see a pair of gouramis or bubble nest spawners mating below the bubble nest the male has created. Certain species of fish live in shells, and others, particularly catfish and cichlids, are mouth brooders. The marine ornamental sector is a highly specialized subsector of the ornamental fish industry. Market demand is very high and the price is good, but the market is essentially controlled by a few big global players. New species are found each year, and new species are spawned in captivity each year. This is a pair of tomato clownfish, and in this slide you can see a pair of cleaner shrimps. Cleaner shrimps are sold along with the ornamental fish industry. In terms of infrastructure types, earth ponds are very commonly used for the farming of goldfish and koi. In the warmer parts of the country, they can also be used for the farming of livebearers and other tropical species. Tunnels with small tanks are commonly used for barbs, livebearers, and tetras. Large tanks for goldfish and gouramis, and recirculating systems for virtually any species. Cages can be used under certain circumstances for koi and goldfish. It isn't the best infrastructure for them, but they do fairly well, especially the koi. Small cages are very commonly used for live bearers, and hatcheries are the most common form of infrastructure on ornamental fish farms. Usually what happens is that the room is insulated using polystyrene or bubble plastic, and then the air is heated. Water has a high heat specificity and therefore rapidly takes up its temperature from the air around the tank. What you then find is the tanks on the top row have a higher temperature than the tanks in the middle, which have a higher temperature than the tanks at the bottom. In this way, the different species can be farmed at different levels according to their temperature requirement. All sorts of different tanks are used, most commonly glass tanks, but on occasion porta-pools, concrete tanks, old bars, plastic tanks, all sorts of different infrastructure can be used. Most species are spawned in these hatcheries, typically in glass tanks, and the more sensitive species are reared here, whereas the less sensitive species would either be reared outdoors or in a greenhouse tunnel. By having separate tanks, one is able to have separate water temperature and separate water quality in neighboring tanks, enabling one to be able to farm a wide variety of species, which is essential to successfully penetrate and maintain a market share within this industry. The marketing of ornamental fish is not simple. There are certain very specific criteria that one needs to maintain in order to have a share in this market. First of all, you need to have a wide range of species, sizes, and varieties. You also need to offer good quality fish. They should be healthy. One also needs to offer consistency per bag. The fish within a bag need to look like clones of each other. Add to this the fact that you need to be able to supply these fish regularly and in good volumes. Whenever a client orders, they want you to have stock. If you don't have, they'll become frustrated and think about going elsewhere. Let's look at an example. Let's say we're starting off by producing 30 species of fish. Each of those species, we're going to produce 2 different varieties, a black one and a red one. We now have 60 different groups that we're working with. Furthermore, we decide we're going to sell a medium and an extra large size of each of these varieties, of each of these species. We now have 120 different groups of fish that we are working with. They have potential different spawning behaviors, different water quality requirements, possibly different dietary requirements. They need to all be healthy, good quality, of the appropriate size, and we need to offer this as a consistent supply. And therefore we need to have production in good volumes across all those species and varieties. And then to really put a nail in the coffin, when people order fish, they generally order small quantities. This is what makes the difference between ornamental fish farming and other forms of aquaculture. With most aquaculture, it's a numbers game. Produce as many tons of fish as possible, control your production costs, and therefore the margin between production cost and sales price multiplied by the sales volume is how you make your money. With ornamental fish, the numbers are completely different. It's all about management. The manager is your most expensive person on the farm, not your feed costs. And therefore that manager needs to be maximally employed to produce as many fish as possible and sell each individual at the best possible price with the lowest production costs. And marketing those fish becomes a major component of your running costs. In this example, you can see the way ornamental fish are typically sold. In an insulated box, in plastic bags. We fill the bag to half its volume with water, place the fish inside the water, squeeze out the air, fill the bag with oxygen, seal it with an elastic band, place it inside the insulated box, close it up, ship the box to around the world to your clients. In this instance, cardboard boxes are being used which are lined with polystyrene sheets. More commonly, we use polystyrene boxes. In this side you can see one of the many exporters in Singapore. Note that this building is naturally ventilated, and the water inside these tanks typically sits at about 27 degrees Celsius. If we in South Africa wanted to do this, we would have to insulate and heat. Also notice the large number of tanks these people have, and consequently the very wide range of products they're able to offer in terms of variety, species and sizes. Ornamental fish farming is certainly not for everyone, but at a current price of about 10,500 Rand per kilo for ornamental fish, there's got to be something worth looking at there.
The koi that come out of here in top condition. Sometimes we grade them, and we're controlling the health and the environment of that the koi are growing in. We don't expose these fish to any fish from any other facility. If some kind of KHV occurrence did happen here, because we're in the 23 degrees window of the KHV, we would see it almost immediately, and we can stop the selling within hours. Compare it with a koi that's coming from outdoors in a different temperature, it could take more time before you actually see this KHV appearing, and this was cause more damage.